Hi guys, and welcome back to JavaScript Playground. In today's video, we will learn how to update styles of an HTML element. To update styles, we can use the style property of DOM. This is the syntax to add or update styles of an HTML element. Selected element dot style dot property name, and we give it a value. So, for example, selected element dot style dot width. So what we're doing here is we are giving a width of 300 to the selected element. If the element already has a width, then it will get updated by this 300. And if it doesn't have a width, then this 300 width style will be added. Let's try an example to understand it better. Say we want to create this animation. So every second the number decreases by 1. The font size decreases by 100 pixels, as you can see here in the console. And the image width decreases by 10%. So for this, we can use the same style property of DOM. So let's give it a try. Say we have this web page. It has an image as a background, and this text has a font size of 1000 pixels. So now this countdown will go from 10 to 0. So that means we have 10 seconds. And with every second, we'll reduce the font size by 100 pixels. So before we could do that, first let's make the countdown. So we've already created a countdown in the previous video. So I've already created a JavaScript file and it's connected to our HTML. So let's select our countdown. So let's say countdown element. So get element by ID. Document.get element by ID. So this is the ID countdown. So let's use it. Now to do something over a periodic interval, we can use the JavaScript set interval function. So set interval, and it accepts two values. First, a function. So let's create an anonymous function here. And it accepts a time period in milliseconds. So let's say 1000, which means 1 second. Coming in here. So what we want to do is, with every second, we want to update the value. Let's get the initial value. So var initial countdown value. So countdown.element.inner HTML, because inside this element there's only text 10. So that's why this will give us 10. So moving on, now let's update it. So initial countdown value. -1. Let's save it. And as you can see, with every second, the value is decreasing. But we haven't put a condition, so it will go even in the negative values. So let's fix that. So let's say initial countdown value. Let's check if the current value is greater than 0. And if it is, then update it. So reduce the value by 1, or else just give it a value of 0. So this should do the trick. All right, so as you can see, it stopped at 0. So moving on. Now what we want is we want to reduce the font size by 100 pixels. So as I mentioned earlier, to update a style, we select an element, so countdown element. Then we use the style property, so dot style, and then we give the property name. So in this case, we want font size. So let's give it a value. Let's bring up our editor here. Let's inspect this so that it moves a little on the right. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so what we want is we want to reduce the font size. So let's say 900 pixel. Similarly, say 800 pixel. So it keeps on reducing when the, say 300 pixels. So as you can see, when the animation starts, so when this function is called, it reduces to this font size, which is 300 pixel. So instead of hard coding this value, we need to update this dynamically. So what we can do is, so current value, so which is 1098 multiplied by 100, and let's add pixel to it. Let's save it. So now as you can see, so whatever is the duration, it's multiplied by 100. So that gives us the font size, and we added pixel because the unit is also required. So when the countdown is 10, so it's 1000 pixels. When it's 9, so 9 into 100, 900 pixels, and so on. And when it reaches 0, so 0 into 100, it's 0, and it gives 0 pixel. So that's why the font is gone now. All right, so if we print it here in console log, the updated value, so console log, say initial countdown value multiplied by 100 plus pixels. Let's save it. And as you can see, it's going from 900, 800, 700 until it reaches 0 pixels. And even when it reaches 0 pixel, it keeps running, it doesn't stop. So we'll come back to that part later. I'll teach you how to stop this interval. So coming back here. So if you notice here, the name of the property is font size with S capital. So what happens is, all the properties, they get converted to camel casing. So for example, you wanted to update margin right. So instead of writing like this, you will write like this. Similarly, say you wanted to update the border bottom. So instead of doing like this, you will do like this. So all the words after hyphen, so all the hyphens are removed and the word is converted into camel casing. All right, let's revert this. Okay, so moving on. Now what we want is, we want this image to reduce every second by 10%. So let's try that. So coming here, so the ID for image is bg-image. So let's select this element. So where, let's say background image. So to select this document.get element by ID, let's use the ID value here. And now we have access to this background image. All right. Again, what we need to do is we need to update the width. So let's bring up our code editor here. So let's select this element, which is background image. So selected element dot style, and the name of the property is width. Let's give it a value, say 50%. Let's save it. And as you can see, the image is taking half the width of the screen. Similarly, if you make it 25%, let's save it. It takes 25% width of the screen. So what we want is, with every second, this value to reduce by 10%. So what we can do is, so initial countdown value, so which goes from 10, 9, 8, 7, so on, multiplied by 10 plus %. Let's save it. And as you can see, with every second, this value is reducing. And when it reaches 0, everything goes away. All right, so moving on to this. So even after we've reached this condition where we want to stop the interval, it keeps running after that. So let's stop it. So coming back here, this set interval function, it returns an interval ID, and we can store it in a variable. JavaScript has another function called clear interval. It accepts this interval ID to stop the interval. So let's give it a try. So let's say interval. So we've stored this ID in the variable interval. Now, the name of the function is clear interval and it accepts this ID. So if we pass it here and we save it, so it should stop after the first iteration. And as you can see, it stopped after the first iteration. So what happens is it goes inside the function, it executes all these lines, and when it reaches here, it stops our set interval function. So instead of just calling it for the first time, we need to put a condition here. So let's use if condition. So if my initial countdown value is less than or equal to 0, call this clear interval function. So once the initial countdown reaches 0, we need to stop this interval. So let's save it, come in here, let's see. And as you can see, when it reached 0, it stopped executing. Now, this sounds like fun, right? Well, two things to notice here. First, all these styles are added as inline styles. So if we inspect our element here, so it has inline styles now. So style with 0%, style font size 0 pixels. So if I refresh the page, this value will get updated. So as you can see, the value is getting updated every second. Second, there's a small limitation of this method. You can only update those styles which can be written as inline styles. So what this means is that you can update styles like color, margin, font size, etc. But you cannot add or update styles for pseudo classes and pseudo elements, because you cannot write pseudo elements or pseudo classes as inline styles. Of course, there are workarounds, but there is no direct way provided by JavaScript. Let me know in the comment section if you would like to know about those workarounds, and I'll do a video for you. And that's a wrap for today. I hope this gave you a better understanding of how to update element styles. But if you have any doubts or queries, feel free to drop a comment below or reach out to me on Twitter. I'll add my Twitter handle in the description below. See you in the next video. Bye and take care.